Thanks, Namali, for the introduction and to the organizer for inviting us. So first of all, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owner of the land we are meeting today and pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. So today we have heard a lot about ESGs, probably same conference 5 years ago, not the same level of interest. It's a shifting landscape, definitely. What was true 2, 3, 5 years ago, maybe it's not true anymore now. And new trends are emerging that require any organization to change, to be ready, to understand the expectation from stakeholders, to be sure that what is done is aligned with this expectation. So a few years ago, a couple of years ago, and that was just before COVID, I think COVID, as you know, with all the bad things that brought, had also some good effects. So it was a sort of a big accelerator of technology, of new trends. And some of these are sustainability and ESG trends. We did this search a couple of years ago that was like 12 lithium companies. And we look at different indicators to understand how they were performing according to different ESG indicators. I extracted a few of the results of this survey, and Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, we intend to redo the survey again to check where they're at now. But I think it's important to understand where they were at the time. Here we've got a sort of normalized assessment of the performance according to different rating tools from rating agencies. As you can see, it's a bit of a mixed bag, but what it's clear is that probably the rating shouldn't have been so low for company already at the time. The expectation is that these ratings are going up for a very simple reason. Ratings are normally used by investors to decide where to put their money. If you are competing for financial resources, you need to get your score higher than they were in the past. The second element is related to what the company committed and what communicated in terms of targets for sustainability. And they were aligned with the sustainable performance goals, sustainable development goals of the United Nations. As you can see, a couple of years ago, while almost two-thirds of the companies were reporting targets against climate change, climate action, that is the indicator, is the goal number 13. For all the other goals, they were not performing that well. Again, there is room to improve. Third aspect I isolated in this slide is related to the materiality assessment. I don't know how much you know about the process of materiality assessment. It's what an organization does when they are starting to reporting against sustainability or if they want to set up a new sustainability strategy. So they rank a lot of topics which are relevant for them as a company, but mainly are relevant for their stakeholders. So there is an exercise that is listening to stakeholders, understanding what's important for them, and report and build a strategy that responds to their needs. Also, this is subject to continuous change. So these were true maybe a couple of years ago. Still health and safety, which is number one. It's important, I guess, for everybody. Health and safety is first for any mining companies. But others probably would change in the ladder. Greenhouse gas and climate change maybe will go up. I was surprised to see biodiversity so low. There was still COVID impact there that probably would go somewhere else in this. So it's important also to keep up with the materiality assessment to be sure that we are targeting and focusing on the most important thing. But the other important thing to do is really to understand what are the big trends in sustainability, not just in Australia, not just in WA, but globally. So the important point that I want to make here is that all these trends are interrelated. You need to have a systemic view of that. Don't look at decarbonization in isolation from biodiversity, from the use of resources like, for example, water. Or don't look at circular economy without thinking about how this can attract sustainable finance, for example. So it's important that we get the big picture on this. But let's look at what, according to us, are the main trends that are emerging. We talk about some of these. You are probably familiar with the task force of the climate-related financial disclosure. Now, we've heard also this morning that it's becoming important also to report and disclose about the impact on the nature-based elements. So the TNFD, that is the task force on the natural financial disclosure, that will need to be reported, and as it is for the climate financial disclosure. Another important thing that is happening is around the way we report sustainability indicators. So there are new standards. We need to be updated on that. If you are a new reporter, have a look at the standard. There's no point to starting reporting on something that nobody will be interested in. Follow the standard. IFRS is the Financial Global Association setting up financial standard. Now, more and more, they require that also sustainability standards are reporting together with financial numbers. Decarbonization, we know a lot about that. We talk about net zero. You are part of the solution for decarbonization. Without your effort, it would be very difficult to go to net zero. And if you have read the IPCC report, the last one that was recently published, you would see that while there is much more discussion about the need for going to net zero, we are still lagging behind. If we look at what is the level of reduction or what we need to be in terms of reducing the increase in temperature in the world. So it's important that we find a way to get there. One of the emerging trends we have seen is what we call radical collaboration. So the fact that we cannot expect by ourselves to get there. More collaboration is needed. And there are two examples there, which are the Charge On Innovation Challenge and the Electric Mine Consortium, that are big movement. They started on the initiative of large miners. The Charge On one is something we were involved in as facilitator. Rio Tinto, Vale, BHP decided to join effort to find new technology to recharge batteries in mines during the operation. It's a big project. New technology has been selected. It would be something that wouldn't have happened unless they decided to collaborate. Same story for the Electric Mine Consortium. I know that some of the companies present to this conference are involved in that. Here we were involved in the part related to the long-haul truck electrification. So a very ambitious project to create an infrastructure to electrify the transport of mining mineral from mine to ports. Namali, I loved your project about supply chain data. This is the direction to take. We need to do the same around the ESG indicators related to supply chain. Understanding what are the risks. You know that conflict minerals are already legislated in some countries, especially in the US. Tin, tantalum, tungsten are all conflict minerals. So companies under the CEC regulation are required to report and do due diligence according to where these materials are coming from. So if they're coming from Africa, Democratic Republic of Congo, or adjacent countries, you need to disclose it. Biodiversity, other emerging trend. We have seen fantastic example of circular economy. So design for recycling of batteries, recycling of components of batteries. This is the way to go. Again, it requires a lot of data. And technology is there, artificial intelligence, to understand what is the best way to bring results on this. And clearly, sustainable finance and the availability of money for green projects through green bonds or other form of sustainable finance. So what needs to be done in the short and long term? You need to get it right. You need to understand who are really your stakeholders and map them. Once you have done that, you can develop a good materiality assessment, but you need to repeat it every year to understand what's changing, follow the trends, and be sure that you are on top of your game. Align with the Sustainable Development Goals. This is something that almost all of the largest organizations are already doing. So there is an expectation that everybody along the supply chain will do the same. Set targets, short and long term, because these help you to keep on track. Don't try to say, okay, we are in compliance, that's enough. You can do more. And these will be rewarded in the market because you will attract more capital. You will attract better people because they like what you're doing. Monitor mega trends as the one I showed you before. And if you have not reported yet, start reporting against sustainability. You don't need to create huge reports. Sometimes it's enough what you put in your annual report. In the long term, keep on going with the same activity. If it's the case, obtain third-party assurance because these increase the value of what you are disclosing, because there are other parties that say it's true, it's robust, it's what they're saying, it's aligned with the best standard, it's not greenwashing. Remember, greenwashing can be a big risk for companies at any level. But, and I would like to stress in conclusion, especially this point, be prepared for collaboration. So establish intra and inter collaboration within your industry. Again, charge on challenge, see miners, technology provider, OEMs working together for the same objective, for the same benefit. And this is working pretty well. And last but not least, you need to create the right culture around ESG, their importance, and so on. Think about safety. If you don't have a good safety culture in your companies, it's very difficult to improve your performance. It's very difficult to keep people out of trouble. It's very difficult to change the behavior of workers when we know that the wrong behavior is sometimes what leads to injuries, fatalities, and so on. Apply the same concept to sustainability. If all the companies align, if there is a shared culture about doing the right thing, connecting with the right stakeholder, collecting the data, provide good information to the decision maker, everything will come much easier. If you have, I don't know if you have time for questions later on, but you can meet us at our booth, number 38. And thanks again for staying and for listening. Thank you.